Seoul Land 208 Original Novel DouLuo DaLu. Chapter 241. Seahorse Sacred Pillar Battle. TL by Bagelson. Mercy to one's enemy was cruelty to oneself. There were still another 6 challenges after this, so Tang San naturally wouldn't give up this chance. White light spread out underneath him, instantly enveloping the entire Seahorse Sacred Pillar platform area. This was the start of the Death God Domain's Azura Hell. Seahorse DouLuo only felt his whole body grow cold, and saw Tang San's silhouette disappear from in front of him. His surroundings became a blood-red world, mournful screams echoed in his ears, ice-cold, nearly tangible killing intent assaulted him from all directions, and he couldn't keep his heartfelt timidity from emerging. Domain. Seahorse DouLuo didn't start attacking like Tang San had, and in one move, met Tang San's Death God Domain. Adding on his previous momentary absent-mindedness, he'd immediately became passive. However, as a title DouLuo, he of course wouldn't collapse after such a minor hitch. He wasn't flustered because the world around him had changed, and with a shake, he revealed his spirit avatar. Seahorse DouLuo's body instantly fused with his white bone armor, transforming him into a 3-meter-long giant seahorse. With a shake, a bizarre circular ripple spread out from him, while at the same time his 6th spirit ring brightened. The ripple was light blue, and densely covered a 5-meter diameter range around him. It unexpectedly forced out the Azura Hell's killing intent. Even though it couldn't break the Azura Hell, nor influence Tang San, the Death God Domain's influence on him was still minimized. The layer of ripples spread out and covered Seahorse DouLuo's body like a shield, similar to Tang San's vast sea barrier, except Seahorse DouLuo's ripple shield was exclusively used for defense. At that moment, the scenery in front of Seahorse DouLuo suddenly changed. The severe killing intent from before disappeared, and in its place was a golden blue world. The moment the blood-red color changed to golden blue, he caught sight of Tang San. Taking one step forward with his left leg, a plain and unceremonious punch was blasted straight towards Tang San. The Tang San he saw had not only turned completely golden blue, but moreover had 8 dazzling golden lances that were like spider legs appear. After incarnating as a seahorse, he had 2 short arms, somewhat different from a seahorse itself. However, this plain and unceremonious punch still lit up his 5th spirit ring. A series of explosive cracks echoed through the air, as if the atmosphere was enduring enormous pressure. And within the sea behind Tang San, an enormous wave soared up, condensing into a giant fist in midair which shot straight for Tang San's back, forming a pincer attack with Seahorse DouLuo's punch. Everyone watching the fight from the shore felt their hearts tighten a bit. Being familiar with Tang San, they of course knew that Tang San had switched domains, and that Seahorse DouLuo had seized the moment in between the 2 great domains to launch an attack. To be able to stay clear-headed enough to seize this opportunity, while under the influence of the Death God Domain, clearly showed his battle strength. However, Seahorse DouLuo's attack was still within Tang San's expectations. The enormous pressure in front of and behind him, as well as his whole body being in a locked condition, such that he couldn't even use teleportation. This was the strength of a title DouLuo. However, Tang San still wasn't flustered, nor did he have any intent of dodging, as he just stiffly took on Seahorse DouLuo's frightening attack. Amidst a loud explosion, Tang San's body didn't move a bit. Today's first invincible golden body launched. Over 72 hours, or 3 days, he had altogether 9 chances to use invincible golden body. In order to finish the present battle as quickly as possible, Tang San didn't hesitate to use the first one. The pincer attack from both in front and behind could undoubtedly bring out the attack's greatest power, but when confronted with Tang San's invincible golden body, it was still ineffective. It was so ineffective that, because it had attacked from both the front and rear, it didn't even push him away. Tang San of course had his reasons for choosing to take this punch head-on. Only like this, did he have absolute certainty of again pulling Seahorse DouLuo into his blue-silver domain. He'd already noticed that Seahorse DouLuo had no domain of his own, so a battle within his domains was undoubtedly more advantageous to him. Moreover, using his body to take Seahorse DouLuo's attack also gave him time to do some other things. The attack was ineffective, causing Seahorse DouLuo to be shocked. All he saw was Tang San's right arm flash red, and his body instantly be completely covered in golden light. What kind of defensive strength was this? His spirit power was obviously higher, so how could his attack have been ineffective? While he was still surprised, Tang San's figure had already disappeared from in front of him. The blue-silver domain's boundless nature finished. Even though there were no plants on the platform, with Tang San's present strength of spiritual force, while there weren't any on the platform, that didn't mean that there weren't on the shore. His domain instantly crossed the sea within the sea, and swiftly drew from the plants on the shore to display the power of his blue-silver domain. At the same time, countless golden threads had appeared within this blue-silver domain, which swiftly encircled Seahorse DouLuo. This was what Tang San had done while he was taking the attack just now. The 8 spider lances naturally wouldn't appear for nothing, as the fusion ability of his external spirit bone and the domain, devouring golden threads, launched. Seahorse DouLuo was unconcerned at the start, but as the devouring golden threads fell on the ripple shield he'd opened before, he became shocked. The ripple shield's energy was actually frantically draining away due to the effect of the threads. Along with Tang San entering the 80th rank, while within the blue-silver domain, his devouring golden threads no longer needed to touch the body to devour anything in the domain that didn't have the blue-silver domain's own energy would be swallowed up, and then filtered through the 8 spider lances to become part of Tang San's spirit power. Weakening the other side and strengthening oneself, this was where the blue-silver domain was most tyrannical. At the same time, it was one of Tang San's aces for victory. The Death God domain wasn't bad, but it exhausted an enormous amount of spirit power. When the opponent had no domain, the blue-silver domain was undoubtedly the best choice. The ripple shield's range extended out a full 5 meters, so it naturally suffered from even more devouring golden threads. Sensing the thread's effect, Seahorse DouLuo couldn't help being shocked. Such a terrifying domain. No wonder his 5th trial was to challenge the 7 sacred pillar DouLuo. Helplessly, Seahorse DouLuo could only pull his 6th spirit ability's ripple shield back, as close to his body as he could, reducing the area of contact with the devouring golden threads as much as possible. At the same time he punched out once again, this time striking towards the sky. However, he received yet another shock. Indeed, the devouring golden threads were sent flying from his punch, but they didn't break, as if they basically hadn't received any force at all. And, a small part of the energy from his punch was absorbed by the devouring golden threads. They could absorb too? Seahorse DouLuo finally sensed danger. He understood that, if this went on, Tang San wouldn't even need to attack him. As long as he maintained the domain, absorbing his spirit power, he would lose. As one of the 7 sacred pillar protectors, a formidable title DouLuo, he naturally wouldn't concede like this. White light flashed in his eyes, and Seahorse DouLuo stopped caring about the devouring golden threads. Breathing in deeply, he crossed all 10 of his fingers, and raised his hands to his chest with his palms down. At the same time, his 9th spirit ring brightened. Spirit masters without a domain were at an extreme disadvantage against spirit masters who had one. What Seahorse DouLuo was going to do now was to rely on his spirit power being higher than Tang San's, and launch his strongest attack. Even if he couldn't beat Tang San, he'd still consume as much of his spirit power as possible. This was his duty as an examiner. He wouldn't throw the game because he knew Tang San, because he knew Tang San's identity. Although Seahorse DouLuo's 9th spirit ring was still the black color that represented the 10,000-year level, in fact, this black spirit ring had still surpassed 80,000 years of cultivation. Back then, he'd suffered untold hardships in the ocean in order to find a suitable spirit beast. Now his 9th spirit ring flashed, the black ring of light rapidly expanding, as it formed a circular black screen that revolved around him, and enormous energy fluctuations frantically rushed out, causing the surrounding atmosphere to violently distort. Daimyo Bai and the others observing the battle clearly saw the entire sea within the sea boiling, and without the obstruction of the Seahorse Pilla's light this time, the sea actually rose perfectly straight for 100 meters, while that clear sea water was moreover instantly dyed black, its violent heaving distributing endless energy. The Shrek 5 Devil's expressions changed simultaneously. This was a title DouLuo's 9th spirit ability. Such tremendous power! Even when compared to the all-out eruption of a 100,000-year spirit beast, it wasn't inferior. While Seahorse DouLuo was completely suppressed by Tang San's domain, therefore he'd launched his most powerful attack. His thinking was very straightforward and direct, but also very effective. I can't see through your domain? You're going to drain my energy? Then fine. I'll bring out all of my energy for you to swallow. I don't need to find you. With this comprehensive attack 9th spirit ability, detonate with all the force of my strength fused with the sea within the sea. It will attack both you and your domain, and even if this will exhaust most of my energy, you won't be feeling well either. Undoubtedly, Seahorse DouLuo's choice was extremely correct. As a title DouLuo, his spirit power was above Tang San's, so picking an all-out collision was advantageous for him. Even weakened by the domain, he still had his more than 90 rank spirit power. Seahorse DouLuo's black 9th spirit ring represented an ability called Tornado Giant Wave Nirvana Fist. Spirit power spread out, drawing all of the surrounding water element in to form a giant whirlpool, producing an area attack. Located at the heart of the sea within the sea, this was undoubtedly the ideal location for the Tornado Giant Wave Nirvana Fist. The waves overflowing into the sky had already begun to rotate, and Seahorse DouLuo's spirit power swiftly charged up. The moment he finished charged up, would be the perfect moment for this frightening 9th spirit ability to take the stage. At this moment, Tang San's figure appeared. Within the golden blue domain, his golden blue figure seemed a bit unclear. Gracefully rotating in the sky, his left leg kicked out. The moment his leg was above his head, his left leg chopped down. It no longer seemed like a leg, but rather like an enormous battle axe cutting through the sky as it descended. In that moment, the image of the evil spirit Orca King smashing his giant tail against the surface of the sea seemed to appear behind him. Described as a red light, it was like a sparkling and translucent fan-shaped afterimage in the air. Strangely, Tang San's target wasn't Seahorse DouLuo, but rather that black light he'd released, that circular black screen from the 9th spirit ring. This black light screen was a defense that activated when Seahorse DouLuo used his 9th spirit ability, and its defensive capabilities were even higher than his 6th spirit ability Ripple Barrier. As Tang San's attack fell from the sky, all of the devouring golden threads instantly gathered together, condensing into 2 parts, and attacking from 2 sides, the devouring ability activating fully. In this way, the black light screen whose energy was being rapidly absorbed under the golden threads draining, dulled slightly in the middle. And it was at this moment that Tang San's left leg fell from the sky. 100,000-year Evil Spirit Left Leg Bones Ability, Orca Evil Spirit Axe. Tang San altogether had 5 spirit bones, and only the newest of these, the Evil Spirit Left Leg Bone, could be said to be completely offensive. As a 100,000-year spirit bone, its offensive power could be imagined. It had 2 attack abilities, one being a ranged attack, and the other being the Orca Evil Spirit Axe that Tang San had just now used, which focused the strength of the entire body into the left leg, amplified it with the spirit bone, and formed an axe edge as thin as a cicada's wing, which shot out in a straight line. Even Xiao Bai was at a disadvantage against Tang San's Orca Evil Spirit Axe with all her strength. This showed just how frightening this spirit bone ability was. When 100,000-year spirit bone or spirit ring's effects could be completely used for offense, it was extremely frightening. A soft tearing sound echoed, as red light swept past, and the black light of the circle protecting Seahorse DouLuo suddenly grew denser. In the next moment, a large gap was shown between the 2 streams of devouring golden threads. Red light appeared again. This time it wasn't the light of a spirit bone, but rather of Tang San's 8th spirit ring. That rippling red light that had once trapped Dai Mubai and Ma Hongjun spread out with this 8th spirit ring, quietly flowed into the gap in the black light screen, and enveloped Seahorse DouLuo. Tang San's 8th spirit ring's ability, Blue Silver Orca Devil's Absorption, started. As a 100,000-year spirit ring, Tang San's 8th spirit ring had 2 abilities, the second of which was Blue Silver Orca Devil's Absorption. Its features were: physical defense is ineffective, if the physical body touched its red ripples, regardless of their physical strength, they'd be forcibly stunned for 3 seconds. Energy could block it, but if it touched any released spirit ability energy attacks, the releaser's spirit power will be consumed at triple the attack's normal rate. This was an extremely potent crowd control ability amongst all control-type abilities. Being forcibly stunned for 3 seconds was something even title DouLuo level powers would tremble at. Because this stun ability was absolute, it would take effect as long as it touched one's physical body. It couldn't be counteracted by any abilities or internal spirit power. Even with an energy shield defense, after coming in contact with the Blue-Silver Orca Devil's Absorption, one's spirit power would be swiftly consumed. Confronting such a spirit ability, and choosing to defend, wouldn't work, but not defending would mean being stunned. This was where high-level control-type spirit masters gave other kinds of spirit masters the largest headache. Right now, Seahorse DouLuo's surrounding energy defense had already been broken by Tang San's Orca Evil Spirit Axe, and the red light ripples of Blue-Silver Orca Devil's Absorption naturally latched onto him without any politeness. The forcible stun took effect. The simple word forcible, for Seahorse DouLuo, could be read as destruction. If it was an ordinary stun ability, right now it'd be ineffective on Seahorse DouLuo. While using an exceedingly powerful ability like his 9th spirit ability, Seahorse DouLuo's body was in a kind of oppressive state. Let alone the defensive screen around him, even without it, he'd still be very difficult to interrupt. Otherwise, how could his 9th spirit ability be worthy of being called a title DouLuo's ultimate attack? However, no matter how powerful the 9th spirit ability, it still couldn't endure Tang San's freakish 100,000-year spirit ability. The instant stun immediately made Seahorse DouLuo unable to continue controlling the tremendous spirit power he'd gathered. Amidst an explosive sound that made the entire Sea God Island shudder, the already condensed giant whirlpool in the sea within the sea shattered explosively. Giant waves splashed onto everyone on the shore, making them all like drowned chickens. Seahorse DouLuo's 9th spirit ability had unexpectedly been forcibly interrupted by Tang San like this. Most dreadful was that, although most of the energy from his 9th spirit ability that he'd gathered had been released outside, there was still a part that had been stored within his body, which had been used to connect with and control the ability. Without Seahorse DouLuo's control, this portion of spirit power abruptly created a backlash. With a muffled groan, blood spurted frantically from Seahorse DouLuo's mouth, and even his nose and ears overflowed with blood. He stumbled backwards several steps, until he hit the Seahorse sacred pillar, and managed to regain his balance. The blue-silver domain's boundless nature quietly disappeared, and Tang San reappeared before Seahorse DouLuo. He didn't keep attacking, as his boundless level spiritual force could scan Seahorse DouLuo's physical condition, and Tang San of course wouldn't throw stones down the well after this title DouLuo, as they'd always had good relations with each other. If it weren't for Oscar still having to challenge him later, Tang San wouldn't have even let this title DouLuo suffer injuries this severe. Victory, I defeated a Sea DouLuo. No matter how staunch his willpower was, Tang San couldn't help being inwardly excited at the moment. This was the first time that he'd defeated a title DouLuo level power one-on-one. Even though this victory could be attributed to all of his various monstrous and powerful abilities, without a doubt, he'd relied on his own strength to defeat his opponent. The 5th trial was 1/7 complete. Senior, you let me win. Tang San bowed slightly to Seahorse DouLuo. The 3-second stun had already passed, and Seahorse DouLuo stood there unsteadily, secretly sighing, and bowed in return. No need to be polite. Many thanks for starting off leniently. During the 3-second stun, when the backlash from his 9th spirit ability's energy had appeared, Tang San could have killed him if he'd wanted to. But he didn't suffer any follow-up attacks, thus it was clear that Tang San was holding back. Even if he still had the strength to fight, he wouldn't quibble over justifications. A line of blue light flashed, and another silhouette appeared next to Tang San, Xiao Wu. Xiao Wu's trial was to accompany Tang San throughout the Sea God 9 trials, and Tang San of course wouldn't forget her when passing a test. At the start of his and Seahorse DouLuo's battle, he'd taken Xiao Wu out from the wishful 100 treasures purse, and had, at the same time, let her soul return to her body, before enveloping her in the vast sea barrier, achieving a camouflage effect. Like this, not only could he let Xiao Wu accompany him through the trial in a relatively safe manner, but at the same time Xiao Wu could also launch surprise attacks from the side at any time in order to help Tang San pass the trial. There had clearly been no need for Xiao Wu to get involved in the confrontation with Seahorse DouLuo. Moreover, Tang San was also certain that if Xiao Wu had interfered, the completion level of his trial would decrease. In their original plan, he'd have the help of his friends in the later tests, so Tang San would of course complete the trials that he could on his own. Raising his hand, Seahorse DouLuo turned to face the Seahorse sacred pillar, and using the forefinger of his right hand, drew a difficult-to-portray pattern on the sacred pillar. As the last stroke was finished, the pattern blossomed with dazzling golden light, suddenly shining on the golden trident brand on Tang San's forehead. Reflected in the 2 crossing rays of light, a message had appeared in Tang San's mind: Seahorse sacred pillar challenge passed. A ray of bright red light appeared on Xiao Wu's forehead at the same time, before flashing and disappearing. Up in the air, of the 7 rays of golden light, the one belonging to the Seahorse sacred pillar suddenly extinguished. But the golden ball of light in the sky still didn't weaken, only lacking one of the surrounding golden flames. This was an indicator for time passing. Done conceding, Seahorse DouLuo turned and looked towards Tang San, his gaze sweeping over the golden trident brand on his forehead. The next challenges will be even more difficult. I hope that you will be more careful. You should already possess the ability of the Sea God's Light. Even though the Sea God's Light has no attack power by itself, it can still deter sea spirit beasts. At the same time, its deterrence won't only work on them. Seeing the deep meaning in Seahorse DouLuo's eyes, Tang San instantly understood, and said gratefully, "Many thanks for Senior's advice. If you're in any way offended later Senior, Please excuse it. Seahorse DouLuo stared blankly. Right at that moment, two figures moved across the lake. We're Oscar and Ning Rongrong, senior, please instruct us. Seahorse DouLuo then understood what Tang San meant. He could only helplessly shake his head, laughing in spite of himself. It doesn't matter, such tactics are allowed. Only, don't think that I'll give up that easily. If you want to defeat me, you'll still have to bring out your strength. Then, let's begin. Tang San retreated to the shore, no longer watching the seahorse sacred pillar battle. Eating a big recovery sausage, he directly sat down cross-legged to rest, as he recovered his spirit power and mental strength. His challenge to Seahorse DouLuo hadn't used much time, but had actually consumed a considerable amount of energy. Fighting a title DouLuo was easier said than done. Tang San also understood that although Seahorse DouLuo had used his full strength in the fight, he hadn't fought with his life on the line. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to win so easily. Formulating mobile battle tactics as well as using a few formidable spirit abilities in conjunction had exhausted Tang San a lot too. Fortunately he'd had the devouring golden threads for support, which had let him absorb a lot of Seahorse DouLuo's spirit power. His exhaustion was within permissible range. Oscar and Ning Rongrong joined hands to challenge Seahorse DouLuo in a battle without much suspense. Seriously injured in his battle with Tang San, and with his spirit power substantially consumed, it was difficult for Seahorse DouLuo to even maintain his spirit avatar, so how could he defeat Oscar, who was using the clone mirror sausage to copy 100% of Ma Hongjun's spirit abilities, as well as the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda buff from Ning Rongrong? The battle was very direct. Oscar chose the tactic of using large-scale spirit attack abilities to collide with Seahorse DouLuo. Even though it was a bit mean in some sense, it was undoubtedly the most effective way. After only 3 rounds, Seahorse DouLuo could no longer hold out. Ning Rongrong's 80% all-round boost even made Oscar's spirit power a bit higher than Tang San. Even if he didn't have Tang San's endless frightening abilities, the frontal spirit ability collision still forced Seahorse DouLuo to admit defeat. However, just as the Shrek 7 Devils judged before, after Oscar won with a shortcut, his reward was no longer 1 rank of spirit power, but rather half a rank, making him a bit gloomy. But this was already the best result. If he had confronted Seahorse DouLuo in top condition, Oscar knew it would be very difficult for him to succeed. Before leaving, Oscar left behind 10 large recovery sausages for Seahorse DouLuo, and after apologizing once again, everyone set off, leaving for their second destination. This next fight was the true start of the battle. Because, according to everyone's plan, Tang San's challenges would be in between each time Daimyo Bai and the others, like this he could rest for even longer, thereby maintaining his top condition. Consequently, their next choice was the Sea's Lance Sacred Pillar, also where Daimyo Bai had to accept his challenge. He would face Sealance DouLuo. Before setting out, everyone had carefully studied the map of Sea God Island. The second battle choice, Sea's Lance Sacred Pillar, wasn't only because Daimyo Bai was the strongest apart from Tang San, but at the same time also because Sea's Lance Sacred Pillar was at just the right distance. 2 hours later, the Shrek 7 Devils plus Bai Chenxiang reached their destination. The Sea's Lance Sacred Pillar Sea within the sea. As the yellow and purple clothed spirit masters keeping watch by the sea within the sea saw the brands on everyone's foreheads, they didn't stop them, and very quickly brought them to the sea. Judging by eye, this sea within the sea seemed about the same size as by the previous Seahorse Sacred Pillar, only its shape was different. At the center of the sea within the sea was a round platform, and at the center of the platform was erected a pillar at least a third higher than the Seahorse Sacred Pillar, with golden light soaring up. Just looking at the shape of this sacred pillar gave an impression of threatening sharpness. The entire sacred pillar was like a giant lance sticking up, golden light shot from the tip, and fine magic lines alternately hidden and visible under the golden light was magically obscure. Below the sacred pillar, one person sat cross-legged against it. Faint golden hair draped across his shoulders, both eyes closed. Even though the ravages of time had left some marks on his face, one could still tell that this Sea's Lance Sacred Pillar Protector title DouLuo was an outstandingly beautiful man when he was young. Daimyo Bai looked face to face with Tang San. "We'll go." Tang San's trial had a time limit. He wanted to save Tang San as much time as possible. "Go for it!" Everyone called out simultaneously. Oscar slipped a handful of sausages to Daimyo Bai. He was the first to pass the trial, also in order to be able to support the others better. Tang San didn't say more, directly sitting down cross-legged, continuing to recover the spirit power exhausted in the first battle. The others also all took after him to sit down, cultivating, maintaining their peak condition. Only Oscar, who had already passed the 5th trial, observed the battle in front of the Sea's Lance sacred pillar. DouLuo DaLu brought Ning Rongrong over with a few leaps, using the force from striking the surface of the sea with his toes, to land on the Sea's Lance sacred pillar platform. Just at the same time the two of them landed on the platform, a sharp aura immediately assaulted them. It was as if they didn't confront a person, but rather a spear that could overcome any defense. Ning Rongrong shifted her feet, swiftly dodging behind DouLuo DaLu. Not only did she release her spirit, she even instantly used her 9 treasure avatar. Illusory images drifted out, and the skull bone ability fantasy space spread out, enveloping the platform. This was what everyone had planned in advance. The Seal Ants DouLuo DaLu confronted was very possible the 7 sacred pillar DouLuo, second only to Sea Dragon DouLuo. Some clues for this could be seen from him being a Tool Spirit Master. It was more difficult for Tool Spirit Masters to cultivate to title DouLuo than Beast Spirit Masters, but at the same time, Tool Spirit Master title DouLuo would ordinarily be stronger than Beast Spirit Master title DouLuo. Ho DouLuo DaLu roared, his evil eyes radiating sudden light. His body abruptly expanded, the 1st, 3rd, 5th, 7th, actually releasing 4 spirit abilities. With the sway of his body, within Ning Rongrong's fantasy space, he incarnated as a more than 7-meter long, brilliantly golden fierce tiger. With the 4 great boost abilities, DouLuo DaLu's current physical condition was already at its peak. His hind legs used force, and he brazenly lunged. This sacred pillar platform wasn't particularly large, a diameter of just around 20 meters. DouLuo DaLu's body was more than 7 meters long, and he practically just changed form as his ejected sharp blade claws already reached Seal Ants DouLuo. At the same time, strength, defense, and attack boost, 3 great buffing abilities caught up to him from behind, completing the boost. DouLuo DaLu's spirit power was after all already close to 80th rank, further adding Ning Rongrong's buffs, his spirit power intensity absolutely wouldn't be lower than title DouLuo, and this lunge even more exploded from his tyrannical body. Seal Ants DouLuo was already floating in the air when DouLuo DaLu released his spirit avatar. As he sensed the aura of DouLuo DaLu's attack, he couldn't keep his eyes from displaying a trace of shock. His eyes were blue, as if untainted by a hint of emotion. If you had DouLuo DaLu compare it to someone, then this Seal Ants DouLuo's expression was extremely similar to the Breaking Clan chief Yang Wudi. Meeting DouLuo DaLu's tiger claws was a golden lance. This lance didn't have all the magic patterns the Sea's Lance sacred pillar did, but was as smooth as a mirror, without any decoration, seeming so simple and direct. But its 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 5 black spirit rings showed its true strength. The 3rd spirit rong brightened from the spear, and the spear shadow split into 3, 2 of which thrust towards DouLuo DaLu's 2 tiger claws, while the 3rd stabbed straight towards DouLuo DaLu's white tiger throat. These 3 lances were incomparably fast, DouLuo DaLu didn't even clearly see Seal Ants DouLuo's hands move. The 3 scarcely scattered attacks descended simultaneously. The attacks were extremely condensed, like 3 sharp needles. Even before the attacks arrived, a bone-piercing chill already made the giant tiger's hackles rise. DouLuo DaLu wasn't easy to deal with either. His forward momentum was unchanged, as both tiger claws suddenly crisscrossed, bringing lines of spear-sharp golden light. Ear-piercing cracks echoed continuously, and a series of sparks erupted between the lance and white tiger. DouLuo DaLu's body stalled, falling to the ground. And Seal Ants DouLuo was knocked away, striking the Sea's Lance sacred pillar not far behind him before he regained his balance. The golden lance in his hands flickered with light, and his face turned the color of blood. 3 breaths later he had recovered to normal. Clearly, in this first exchange, DouLuo DaLu had taken the advantage. There really was a large gap in spirit power between both sides, 79th rank confronting an opponent of at least 90th rank. But don't forget that just as DouLuo DaLu lunged, he had completely started the 4 great boost abilities, and behind him he also had Ning Rongrong's 3 boost abilities. Attack power, defensive power as well as strength were amplified by 80%. Under the numerous support abilities, his total attack power just exceeded Seal Ants DouLuo's 3rd spirit ability. Ends here. Likes OK, comment OK, write anything. Today 4 episodes, 6 more to go. Good luck always.